All right. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
Well, wait. Let's not be overly here. Is it Sheriff? Is it Brian?
I think for another
Or
few
is it-
more hours, it's still Brian, right?
It's Brian until Monday.
Okay, that was one of my first questions. Monday, you get sworn in?
It'll still be Brian, yes. And the Board of Supervisors, during their session on Tuesday, will have a swearing-in ceremony for all the newly elected public officials.
Cool.
So that's at 9 a.m. Hope to see everybody there.
Excellent. That's Monday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh,
Yes.
before the meeting.
Or during the meeting?
During the meeting.
I think it's at the first item on the meeting at 9 a.m.
Okay, so it is on
Excellent.
the agenda.
Yes.
officially. Cool.
Yes.
All right.
Well, it's been a long year, huh?
It's been a long year.
Yeah, I guess first time I've seen you in person since the election, so let me just say congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Right. And hope you remember our prior conversation.
I do. I remember.
on the radio show.
I didn't take notes, but I remember.
I did.
You'll be tested later.
Okay. Well, I don't plan on saying anything different now that. So
That's what we want to hear.
Yep. So, I guess you already answered my first question. Tuesday is when you officially take over.
yes.
So I guess just for curiosity's sake more than anything, yeah, Sydney, wait for your own questions. Or our watchdog. Trying to figure out how to write her off on my taxes still. So anyway, have you? I assume you've had some communication with the sheriff's department.
Yes, I've been in contact with, had a couple meetings with the staff members and some of the Lion level personnel. Made a couple visits out to the jail. We have that jail expansion project that's in process. I could never imagine the amount of bureaucracy and red tape that goes along with a project like that. It's a lease bond revenue project, and so we're still in the paperwork stages, I guess, and anticipating breaking ground sometime next year. And then maybe ready for the first occupants in 2019, I think they're anticipating.
Have you gotten overview on how they're going to do the bid process? If it's going to be local contractors first priority, anything like that?
They're going to try to keep in touch with the or in accordance with the local vendor
Okay.
preference. But a lot of these things, I don't know that a project that size, I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of vendors that are capable of delivering those types of services. But
Well, there's
the
local
labor-
local trades should be able to, electricians, plumbers,
Yeah.
masonry, stuff like that.
Yep.
So, interesting on that one. Have you had any contact with Sheriff Rivero at all?
very, very little.
Okay, so he has not been involved in what I guess is commonly called
The
the transition
transition.
period.
He seems to be doing on his side. Like I say, we don't interact, but he hasn't obstructed me at all. He's allowed me to meet with or allowed his staff members to meet with me and talk about what my plans are, and so in that aspect, I'm appreciative of that.
Okay, so he hasn't been a roadblock at all.
Is Under Sheriff Macedo pretty much running things right now?
He appears to be, yeah. There's things that still require the sheriff's signature because he's the elected official and the office holder
Right.
Until next week. So he still has to be there, but for the all-around day-to-day operations, Under Sheriff Macedo's been doing that.
Is he still going to be your undersheriff?
He's going to be for the time being. I need to get my feet in there again. You might have notes on that. I said I need to get in there and take a look around and see what's needed. I want to make sure that I have the right person in there. Chris seems to have a very good handle on things, and if things work out with him, I hope that they'll continue to work out.
Okay. Well, I think that's a smart move from a layperson's point of view, keeping someone with experience and knowledge about the running of the department on a day-to-day basis until you do get familiar with things.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things I was going to ask you, and I guess you've already answered to a certain extent, that I thought that Sheriff Rivero would at least sit down with you, kind of go through the day-to-day responsibilities and the overview of what you need to do, how you interact within the office. So has the undersheriff helped you with that?
We'll have our own unique styles, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I know, but there's still mundane day-to-day stuff that
there-
has to be done.
Yeah, and that's that's all management administration stuff, and it's a lot of what I've been doing at probation involves those types of things. There's things that are unique to the office of the sheriff, but there are a lot of similarities that come between running different departments in the county.
Yeah, I think it's called paperwork, and paperwork.
Little paperwork.
Yes, yes. That's why I left the corporate world. Couldn't handle it. So, I think one of the more important things, and you want to go first, or we can interchange our questions.
You're on a roll, aren't you?
Yeah,
I mean, go ahead and finish your roll, and
Well, I
then
got a
I'll
lot
start
of
rolling.
things. Okay. One of the things that Rivero did, be it agree if you agree with it or not, he was very available to the public. We called him all the time on his cell phone.
Well, at least up until he lost the election.
Yeah, well, that's
Then he
yeah.
dropped off the face
Yeah.
of the planet.
And I think we asked you this during our initial discussion prior to the elections. How are you going to make yourself available to the public?
Being involved in the public is very important to me. Tonight, I'm going to give a little bit of plug while I got you.
Yeah,
on here
please
with
do.
Free advertising, but being involved and interacting with the public is a extremely important portion of this job. So being involved in community organizations, going to meetings, helping out with Rotary Club functions. Tonight, I'm going to be in a murder mystery dinner production, kind of an improv right here in Clear Lake.
Right.
It's a
For the youth center.
for the
We
youth center.
actually gave it a plug earlier.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm replugging.
That's quite all right.
So events like that I think are just as important.
So wait a minute. Do you play a mobster?
I do.
Ah, see, I knew that.
yeah.
You-
Split
And
personality.
let's see, in Mr. Lake County, you were a pimp. I want to
No,
like.
no, we
No.
need to
Come
talk
on, you were
about
dressed
that.
like a pimp. Let's go
I was
there.
just flamboyant.
No, you're never mind.
So tonight I will be a mobster. My role is that of a mob boss. I don't
Oh,
know if
that's
I'll be able to come
hilarious.
up with a 20s mob style accent, but I'll do my best, and hopefully there'll be some good laughs, and most importantly raise some funds for the youth center here.
What fun! Well, good for you. I mean, it takes a lot of guts to get out there.
I have no acting.
Mr.
experience.
Lake County was a great. I guess that was one of your first public things that you'd done.
I
Or?
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun.
I know it didn't require too much acting.
no.
You had to be yourself, but
It was.
it
Well,
was
I don't know
hilarious.
if that's
That's why I say your alter egos are showing here.
It was. I expected it was going to be a lot of fun, and it turned out to be a lot more fun than.
Oh
than
my
I
God.
Well, first of all, where the hell did you learn how to do balloons?
I learned it the weekend before at the fair.
Really?
Yeah. My daughter is good friends with a local kid here, who Philip the Clown. I'm giving another plug for somebody.
The balloon act.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the balloon
so
guy.
funny.
Yeah. I ran into him at the fair the weekend before. I'm like, hey, I need a talent because I don't sing, I don't dance, I don't play any musical instruments, and so he showed me a balloon trick, and I think I can work something into that. So.
You
That-
didn't
that
think
was
about
hilarious.
doing some type of sharpshooting event?
Yeah, in a crowded theater, I thought that might not be
No.
wise.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I don't know. There's probably a few in the audience that could have made good targets.
And there might have been a few in the audience that was shot back. So.
That is a
That's
possibility.
too. So, anyway, are you going to be available via cell phone and other
yeah.
communication
Yeah,
devices?
you guys have my cell phone or email.
She does.
I,
I'm adverse to
we
calling cops. You know?
and again during the campaign, I pledged to make more use of technology,
Right.
and along with that goes social media. I want to increase the appearance of the sheriff's office on social media, Facebook, Instagram, those types of things.
Right.
A couple of the changes that I do plan on making that I know I have in mind before I actually go in there is I want a dedicated public information officer. And
Great.
So somebody that's
Yeah.
interacting constantly with the public through social media.
Well, I know Lieutenant Brooks told me that he'd be happy to get off the Nixle system. He is not happy.
Well, the
with
Nixle
that.
system
Yeah.
serves its purpose. It's
Yeah.
I don't think it was being used in the for what it was intended to be.
It's
used
good for emergencies
Well, that's the
or,
problem,
or
yes.
criminal events that
Right.
can impact the local community. I think it's fine for that. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
but day-to-day news operations, I don't think
so,
it was designed for that.
one of the biggest problems we have, even though my wife works with this more than I do, is getting a story. We find out through the
The follow-up.
rumors or the scanner, and all of a sudden getting follow-up is almost next to impossible. And not just from here, but from
And
most
I get
law
these
enforcement.
promises, I'll call you right back, and I never get a call back, and we never know what the outcome of any situation is. I mean,
Yeah.
but then sooner or later it shows up in one of the other publications. So,
And again, like I said, a
not good.
dedicated public information. That's a very important function, I think, of the sheriff's department. When we always talk about transparency and openness and communication, and so I think it's important to have a person there that's their job. It's not something else they do. It's going to be that person's job. I've been through a couple media relations type classes, and to learn the importance of that and the value of it, and more importantly, how to do it properly and get information out accurately.
Cool.
That's important for me.
Yeah, I think it's also, excuse me, important for the public,
It is.
especially on some of the more.
I work for the public, so.
Well said.
well, good for you for recognizing that. A lot
So,
of people don't
yeah.
want to see that. Yeah.
I know there was a lot of dialogue, I'll be polite, during the election between yourself and Rivero. And obviously you didn't all see eye to eye on certain issues. So, and that's fine. I mean, we all have our opinions, and, It is what it is.
Why we have choices.
Exactly. So, do you have any in conversations with the department and what your own mindset, having worked in the department prior to this, do you have any short-term goals that you want to implement within 3 to 6 months of your department?
There's several projects that are on the horizon. The buzzword now is recidivism in the criminal justice system. So
That's a hard word to pronounce.
it
by
is
the
a
way.
hard word. You know, and I don't know if it was. I think it was a made-up word that's become a word. But
very
I've heard
well
it many
be.
times.
Yes.
Trust me.
yeah, and so a couple of things that we're working on. There's 2 grants that I'm kind of involved in trying to secure. One, it used to be a grant used just for drug enforcement. It used to fund our narcotics task force, and it's now under the control and direction of the Board of State and Community Corrections. And so the grants it used to be given out to agencies, and if you applied for it, you got it. Now it's competitive. And what they want to do is make sure that you're using this money to reduce recidivism instead of just using it for enforcement. There will be an enforcement aspect of it, but they also want to make sure that those funds are being used for treatment programs, employment
Good.
How about
programs, education,
training programs?
education
My
programs, job
goodness,
training.
we need this so badly.
We do, and,
know-
and there's a second program that's going that's being applied for through the courts, and that is also aimed at reducing recidivism. And so with the court program, we're trying to steer it towards a veterans court type program, and then combine that with the Burn JAG grant and open up a day reporting center here where we can offer those services. Where you got non-violent, non-serious,
Right.
non-sex offenders that are eligible for treatment programs and kind of steer them on the way to a law-abiding.
Is there a possibility to, in a limited extent, of have some type of vocational training as part of that?
Yes.
So people can actually qualify and have the skill where they're not getting minimum wage jobs.
There are. I don't know what the program will be. We're still trying to get the equipment. But first of all, we're trying to secure the grants.
Right.
It's looking pretty good for us. I think we got a pretty good shot at it because we want to do what's right with the money, and set up those job training programs. And if we can have something we're going to have something that's very general, basic job skills, showing up on time, dressing
Of course.
appropriately, showing up sober, ready to work, putting in a full day's work.
Well, yeah,
and-
they have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
And that's
And
got to
then-
be the first thing.
And then if we can come up with some more specific programs in some kind of vocational type skills,
Right.
I'd love to see that.
Without going, unfortunately, some of my bad memories, which actually were, to a certain extent, also good memories. I knew many, many people in the system, for better choice of words, that were coming out, that had been down long enough where they were so scared of coming out because they were getting 3 meals, if you want to call them that, a day. They had a roof over their head, and they got into a routine where they were being given everything instead of them earning it, even though they all had minimal type jobs in the system. But I knew one person was just scared, and I won't use the word, to come out because he never even seen a cell phone before. Never knew how to operate one. He didn't know how to get an apartment. He didn't know how to do anything. And I think a lot of that, especially among some of the older people that are coming out of the system,
that have been in there for a while, yeah.
they need the training and the life skills in order to be able to integrate back into society.
You described institutionalization.
Yes.
Exactly.
And the programs that we're working on are designed. There's other counties in the state that have what are called reentry programs,
Yes.
and those are the types of things that we're going to be working on. Working collaboratively with the probation department, with social services, with alcohol and other drug services, behavioral health, anger management, and get those people the skills that they need to function in society and hopefully become productive members of society.
You know, in Arizona, and I think you have it to a certain extent here in Lake County, they actually had, they called it something different, but it was a reentry program where you had mandated weekly programs to interact with other people who just come out to express their concerns, their problems. There was mandatory classes if you were under some type of abuse, and it seemed to be somewhat effective. I realize you're not going to get 100%.
No. Yeah, there's
Right.
no
It's not
magic
gonna
for all.
happen.
Yeah, there's no one size fits all.
Right.
Because one size can't fit.
So would you be looking at other state or other county programs to see how they work compared to what you might be wanting to do?
Absolutely, I'd love to say this is something new that I thought of, but it's not. It's nothing. It is nothing new. So there's all kinds of other programs that are in place, throughout the country, and more here in California as we kind of adjust to the effects of criminal justice realignment and
Well, I think
shift our way of thinking.
one of the more positive things that happened to Peter during his experience, being someone who was completely, not involved in the criminal world at all and going into that environment, was that he spent time teaching these guys how to do those basic things and created some programming within the prison that helped continue that process for them.
Yeah.
And that to me is the way you want to spend your time. You want to be doing it in a way that's going to help other people, and that is the biggest problem and the biggest contributor to recidivism.
That's so hard to say.
Recidivism is that they have no hope when they get out of being successful, because the system teaches them that they're not worthy and they're not ever going to be successful.
Yep.
So having those training programs, those counseling opportunities, all that stuff is so important, really, to keep them from coming back.
Absolutely, and it's like I said, I wish I could take credit for coming up with this. It's not going to work for everybody,
No.
and we recognize it, and you have to recognize it. If you go in with rose-colored glasses and think I'm just going to fix all the world's problems, and everybody that comes in here, some people want to be involved in the criminal lifestyle, and you're not going to change their mind. There's other
Yeah,
people,
exactly. I mean,
and
that's just
there's
their
other
genes.
people.
Yeah.
There's other people that because of their circumstances they end up like that. And one of the things that I tell people that are coming into this profession, whether it's in law enforcement or in the probation world or corrections, is that I think a unique thing to everybody that comes into this is we get into this because we want to help people.
Hopefully that's
Yeah,
the reason.
we know we can't help people. And if you can, and I still remember a couple people throughout my career where they came up to me a couple years later and said, "Hey, thanks. I appreciate what you did for me because whatever it was."
Tough
So-
love can be
so-
very effective.
Yeah,
too.
so if we can give people the tools that they need to be successful, to get off drugs or alcohol or control their anger problems or get a job, that's a pretty rewarding thing. And we're not out there just to bust criminals and take people to jail and lock them up, because we're doing that in the state for 25 years. And
Yeah. Well, that's going to
and
be another question we're going to have. But in the meantime, I think it was like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I believe your probation department, along in conjunction with, can't remember if it was NAP or Sonoma, actually had at the Soparis Theater,
Yes.
I don't even want what you want to refer to, but it was businesses coming in, pitching job opportunities and what their work environment was to people who had been released looking for employment opportunities. Are you going to continue doing that?
yeah, that's one of those things we're going to work with other organizations like the probation department to bring those types of things. There's funds that have become available to us with the realignment. Instead of sending everybody to prison, they're coming back on the counties, and the state's recognized that it's going to create a burden on the counties, and so there's funding that's available to help deal with that.
Right.
It's not as much as we need, of course, but the funding is coming to address those issues. And before I left the probation department, at the probation department, we took a lot of that funding to hire. We had seven additional positions to help run a day reporting center.
Right.
And that was the first step. That was one of the goals that I wanted to accomplish before I left for the sheriff's office, to get those positions filled. I got them all filled. Unfortunately, a couple people left, so there's, I think, 1 or 2 more vacancies, but we're almost fully staffed and ready to go with that.
Cool.
And so we'll be opening up our day reporting center, and that'll be our first stop, hopefully, for people either instead of going to jail or as they come out of jail, to go in there and meet with a probation officer and a deputy sheriff or a correctional officer and figure out what's available to them to keep them out.
Right.
Good.
We don't want repeat business.
Well, this is the thing that has always mystified me. We know that the prison industrial complex does have a certain amount of money generation going on, and that the states have always, bought into that to a certain level. I mean, Arizona, the governor owned part of a private prison
so did
company.
the head of corrections.
Yeah. So, that issue is there, that there's a money benefit to the government when they do enforce the prison system. But it is totally counterproductive. And it does not create a better society. It creates a worse society. So more that we can do to take these people off the homeless realms, out of the streets, get them sidetracked into something that's going to give them purpose, the better off we're going to be.
I'd say you're preaching to the choir.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
But,
and it's a balance between the people that do need to be locked up, and I think every law enforcement officer that's been in the business for any length of time will recognize that there are people that are victims of circumstance, and they might have a substance abuse problem, and that keeps them going back because they get caught with some drugs
Right.
or do something stupid because they're drunk or whatever. And so if we can address those problems and keep them out, everybody in here knows somebody that, hey, when that person's clean and sober, they're a good guy.
Right.
Right.
If we can address those types of people and keep them out of our system and figure out what it is that's bothering them and address that, that's fine. But still keep in mind that there are true bad guys out there. There are
Oh, yeah.
criminals out there that want to victimize
Well,
people.
this is the point. We have to determine who those people are. And, how many people have been released that turn around and kill more people when they should have never been released in the first place? Now, California has struck down the 3 strikes rule, so they can't fall back on that. And now we have Prop 47 that pretty much says anything having to do with pot is not going to be prosecuted unless you're on a major level. So that opens up a lot of doors for repeat offenders that are already out there to continue repeating and offending.
Well, we talk about what repeat offenses. If we're talking about drug offenses, the personal possession under Prop 47.
And so many times, though, the drugs lead to the thefts,
That's correct.
lead to the domestic abuse, and so pot is one issue we know doesn't really cause a lot of problems when it's legalized. We're finding out in California, Colorado, it actually reduces crime. It has been reducing crime. So the illegality of pot obviously makes more crime. That's what the statistics is showing us. But
I think
meth.
that's what I said during the campaign.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think mainstream marijuana use is becoming more socially acceptable. I said,
Exactly.
check your notes. I don't think I'm saying anything different. But
We've got it all on tape.
and to me, it's not the marijuana itself that is the problem. Like with methamphetamine,
Right.
or those
That's-
other
yeah.
more serious.
Yeah, I'd like to
narcotic
see
type
more of a focus in that direction with prescription pill, oxycodone, and that type of abuse. Not to mention even DUIs and alcohol abuse that are causing crimes through domestic abuse and violence and things like that. Those are the places we need to be focusing.
Absolutely, yeah. What the marijuana issues are, I think, in our communities, and I think it's, I wouldn't say universally acceptable, but I think a vast majority of the public thinks that it's not the marijuana that causes it, but it's the crime that tends to follow marijuana.
Yep.
It's because marijuana is so profitable.
Exactly.
If it's going to continue to be profitable, it's going to continue to draw crime. And those are the issues that we need to deal with.
Exactly.
Of course, the voters passed the ordinance this year restricting outdoor cultivation.
Right.
And so I'm still, as the sheriff, I think my small function is to figure out how to allocate our resources.
Well,
Well, let me ask you a
don't
question.
think
Hold on.
anybody, I don't think anybody
you
has
got
served
my
well.
subject now.
Hold on. I don't think anybody is served well by the sheriff's department looking for little 1 or 2, 3 plant grows in Granny's backyard.
And that's exactly what you said.
Be
during
a
the
good
election.
neighbor. To me, it's all about, hey, be a good neighbor. If you're going to grow marijuana,
Respect for your
Yeah.
neighbors, exactly.
don't attract the crime that comes along with it. If you're
There's a blatancy and almost a what's the word, entitlement that people feel that now it's legal, they can do whatever they want.
Correct.
But that is not the way it works, folks. You have to behave like normal people. Don't be rude to your neighbors. Don't grow your plants so that they're overwhelming their whole enjoyment of their backyard. You could grow 6 plants and each plant is the size of a Volkswagen bus. So if you're sitting next to that person, or a bug rather, if you're sitting next door to that person with 6 Volkswagen bugs in their yard, that stuff is going to smell. I don't care where you're at.
be a
And
respectful neighbor. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well,
let's do that. But
let
I
me-
still want to get to
Okay,
this
hang
next
on. Let me
point.
throw one question in, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go for it. You're not going to let me anyway, so go for it.
There's been a lot of comments, talk, discussions, and publicity about the task force.
You took my.
I'm sorry. Then you go. Go
That's
ahead.
exactly
no.
where
Go
I was
ahead.
going.
Then you can. Go
That's
ahead.
exactly where I was going. To get to the point, obviously a federal court has said that the task force was totally out of line. They did warrantless searches. They busted into people's homes. They broke down fences. They took people's medicine based on code enforcement and Measure N's enforcement, according to what we were told. The federal courts came in and said, no, you can't go in there. You have to have a warrant. You can't go in there without a warrant. On top of that, they also requested that the 5-day notice that is in Measure N also be issued. We've had several people come here to our offices and give us reports that since that time, more than 100 people have been, again, raided, but this time they had warrants, but they did not give 5-day notices, and they still cut down the plants. How do you feel about that?
I don't know that what you've been told is completely accurate as far as what the court said. They can get warrants for less than 5 days. What they were saying is that summary abatement doesn't allow you to have warrantless entry. Summary abatement means you have to go through some process. If the process is that you look over there and you see a violation that fits the description of something that can be summarily abated, you can go down and
But the
fill
court
out
also
a search warrant.
determined there was
You can-
no good cause for summary abatement in probably
It
95%
has to be a
of the
safety
cases.
or health
Yeah.
immediate concern.
And what the sheriff's department had determined was summary abatement, and according to the code enforcement, was summary abatement was not summary abatement because they tried to say it was an issue with water usage, and in most of the cases that they talked to or that they took on, water was not an issue. Either they had their own well, or they weren't diverting, or there was some other reason that water was not an issue. So
Well, hold on. Yeah, I didn't get to finish. You're
Yeah,
asking
I'm
me
sorry.
about how we didn't have to wait for 5 hours. So if they met a
5 days.
or 5 days, if could be 5 hours. If they found something that fit the criteria for a summary abatement, they can go get a warrant and come back and not have to wait the 5 days. In most cases, I think it was probably a couple days or probably posted and notified.
the people
No.
that came to us said they had no notification.
Have you talked to anybody at code enforcement or the sheriff's department?
Not yet.
Not yet?
That's what
Okay.
I'm waiting to hear back because there's supposed to be a whole bunch of these people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd ask them to bring some more that I could verify the statements before I go and check it out with them.
Okay.
That's why we're not really making 100% public right now. It's not really I wouldn't call it a rumor because it happened to the people that came to us to tell us about it, but we still are not confirming it yet. So,
Okay.
but we're still researching it.
My understanding was that, and I don't have the exact numbers, but they posted notifications or code enforcement. I don't know if it was code enforcement in the sheriff's office, but I know code enforcement is involved. And they posted notifications saying that, hey, you're out of violation of the ordinance. And a very large majority of people self-abated and took care of it
Right.
themselves, and they didn't have to come back with the warrants. And I really want to take that approach, and that we're there as much of an education. If we see somebody that's growing 100 plants, or in a,
Right.
in a
Well,
small
obviously.
cluster, we're going to
Obviously.
take action right away.
Yeah.
But if you're, if you're a couple plants over, or you're going in a community growth boundary, and the cops see it, it's going to be something different. If somebody calls and complains, the sheriff's department is going to have to respond or send code enforcement out there and take a response. But if the deputies are
But
driving
if you're
around,
just doing a few plants on your porch and your neighbor calls it in, code enforcement sends his sheriff's office out, they shouldn't have any reason really to have to worry about a warrant before giving the 5-day notice. If that person only has a few plants, they're obviously not destroying the environment by watering them. So what kind of reaction are we going to see now from your sheriff's department in these kind of situations? Are people going to have summarily just everything cut down like they've been doing? Or are you going to give them the opportunity, follow the procedures, do the
If-
abatement process as
if-
it's stated?
my feelings are that if the sheriff's department or the county or the code enforcement has to go in there and do their own abatement proceedings, we're going to take care of everything down to what the law requires. So if you're in a community growth boundary and your neighbors call and complain about you, and we go out there and go, hey, take care of it yourself, or we'll come back, and we come back, it's all got to be gone.
Right.
That's the way it
right.
has to
Well,
be, yeah.
and that's fair. That's what the law says.
Yeah.
So we all want to work within the laws.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I had a meeting a week or so ago with some people both from the law enforcement, code enforcement side, and from the cannabis side, talking about what we can do that's fair. I think there needs to be an education effort that goes forward. I imagine this will probably be one of the venues that goes out for education.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're actually going to be doing a program that's going to try to help educate people a lot about the industrial possibilities, the medical possibilities, because as we move towards 2016, we have to face the facts that we may have legalization on our threshold right now. So we need to prepare for that. We need to be aware of it, and especially with the strides that have been made with the specific type of oils that are being used right now for curing cancer and epilepsy and some of the other things. Lake County is in a unique position because we're so fortunate that this plant just seems to grow so well here. We could be one of the leaders in the industry should we so choose to go in that direction and do it with a concentrated approach that is involved with educating And maybe the people that are growing out there can put 25 to 50% of their crop towards CBD producing plants that are good for the epilepsy, that don't create the high, that are good for kids to use for seizures and things like that. And then they would get some kind of special, maybe a lower tax or a lower fee per plant if we have a fee-based system, in the future, that would encourage them to do so. We need to have a nurturing environment, in other words, for our medicine to really create it in the right way, because not everything everybody's doing is about getting high. There is so much on the horizon right now in the medicinal area that if we choose to embrace that, we can create an economy here that could produce medicine to cure cancer, to cure seizures, to help with pain management, and do it on a level that makes it like a pharmaceutical product. We can achieve that here in Lake County.
See, I've talked to some people, and they think that that may not happen with legalization, and the thinkings are that places like Lake County, Mendocino, Humboldt, Trinity County, the area that's kind of Lake
The
County,
Emerald Triangle.
The Emerald Triangle. The reason that there's so much marijuana growing here is because it's been an underground industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that it's
Well, the money, yeah.
The weather is good, but the terrain is not. I mean, you have to, with all the mountains, and it's sometimes hard to get some good sun exposure. And there's a lot of people that are thinking that the opposite may happen to our county, and that the commercial growing.
Well, let me.
There's two different ways.
Valley.
There's two different ways to look at
Either
it.
way, I think
You can look
it'll
at
be
it like a
interesting to see.
commercial industry, like the big farmers, big ag coming in and doing this massive, growing, which is going to create a commercial grade product that is not going to be anything like what's produced in the Emerald Triangle. I believe the Emerald Triangle is always going to have what we call a boutique market that would be a high-end, high-quality product that then the byproducts of that then would go into a high-end, high-quality medicine product in the way of the oils, which are made from the byproducts of the flowers. So you don't need to use the flowers for the medicine. You can have your trim and all that go to
You're
the
much
medicine.
more educated on this than I am.
Yeah, and I'd love to share some of this with you, and that's one of the things I hope we can open that dialogue, because it is a very important
think-
economy that we need to preserve.
The sheriff's small role in that is to ensure public safety while we're doing this.
Exactly.
Of course.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I will be inflexible on, and one of those is the ordinance calls for no cultivation allowed within 1,000 feet of a school.
Absolutely.
And so I want that out there, that I'm going to be inflexible on that. If you're growing and you're within 1,000 feet of the school, it's got to go. It can't be anywhere near the school.
No, we agree with
I don't
the
think any
laws,
people's gonna
and we
argue.
want to enforce that. And what I want to see is we take a measured approach towards the development of the industry so that everybody is on the same page. And, there's a lot of confusion right now between what's a medicinal product and what is a product for your head. And a lot of people on the recreational side, they do certain kinds of oils that give them more of a high. That is not necessarily the kind of oil that you would use for medicine.
Right.
So there's totally different uses, and it's important to know the differences, especially in an enforcement perspective, because you're going to be coming into people's homes, and when you see, well, not you personally, but your guys, and when they see something, they need to know what they're looking at. And so it's really important to understand the uses, the way it looks, what this product is made from, how it's being made, and how it's being delivered to the person in their ingestive state. Because a lot of doctors are now saying juice it. And when you juice it,
Juice everything.
yeah, exactly. When you juice it, you get different parts of the plant that you don't get when it's heated. So for diabetes, for example, I should be juicing it. Well, I can't get enough to juice because it takes a lot of fresh product. So if I get something that I feel is something I want to juice, I'll freeze it, and that way I'll have it fresh when I'm ready to do it. But that requires me having a certain amount of product on hand. So it just makes it really uncomfortable when you want to try to do the medicine the way the doctors recommend it, but the laws say you have to follow certain restraints. And that's where I'm hoping we can come up with a compromise. I know Jim Steele has said that he wants to look at Measure N, and Jeff Smith also has said that he wants to look at Measure N and try and tweak it to bring it into a more reasonable level for people to really be able to access their medicine. Because right now, access is being denied, and that's another lawsuit the county's going to have to face sooner or later until we get that compromise.
You mentioned the underground economy regarding this this industry. I think the big boys, for better choice of words, don't really give a blankety blank about what the laws are. You know that. I know that. beat the cartels, whatever you want to
the
call
bad
them,
guys.
the
Let's
bad
put
guys.
it that way.
But people I've gotten to talk to that are quote in the industry, especially those who are outside of Lake County, want to do things the honest way.
There's so many.
And I'll give you an example. There was a group of the person said old hippies, people our age, not you, us, that
Easy,
have
young
been
kid.
underground for years and years and years, and they don't want to be underground anymore. So they approached me on how do we become legal? And I explained how, under their county laws, again, they're outside of Lake County, what they have to do to meet the standards of the California state laws, and explain to them what the federal consequences are versus the state consequences. And they all decided, even though we don't want to be part of society and the system, they realized they have no choice. And they did do what was required under California state law to operate as a cooperative legally. I think more and more people want to do that, including Lake County residents, where they want to conform. They want to
Exactly.
do what's right because,
A
they
lot
ha-
of them don't mind paying fees per plant
Well-
and things like that. They want to contribute to the system because they know they're making money. And the fact that they're not being recognized as a legal business does make them feel uncomfortable. I mean, nobody wants to live in fear, let's face it. I mean, and that's what's happening. And they know that it's legal, but by the same token, it's not. So it puts them in a big situation, especially these long-time 30-year growers who have been doing this for almost their entire lives, or at least half their lives, and have become extremely good at it. It puts them in a bad position, and you don't want to see a senior citizen go to jail for growing their medicine. I'm sorry. Nobody wants to see that. Which brings the next subject, which is enforcement of the enforcement. Our DA doesn't really follow through on much of these arrests that have been taking place over the last couple of months. So what's your take on that?
I don't know which ones that he's not following through on. I think they're sending a lot of the ones that we're seeing. And again, I'm not at the sheriff's department now, so I don't see what's in there other than what we see in the paper. And it seems like a lot of the high-profile arrests are for what I would categorize as large-scale commercial growing
Large,
operations.
yes,
I don't
yes.
know what his policy or his record is on prosecuting those. I don't know. So
I just
you have to you
it
have to
does
ask.
and
to
obviously I
get
would
Don in
I
here
would
when
like
he
to
shows.
get some statistics on what his follow through has
Mm-hmm.
been on based on the number of arrests, but it doesn't seem like a lot of them are actually seeing the courtroom.
I wouldn't expect him to spend a whole lot of time prosecuting any, personal possession cases. If we catch somebody with a bag of weed and they don't have a 215 card, it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they didn't get prosecuted. I can't speak to what the DA is going to opt to prosecute or not. So
Well, we'll be watching.
I'm
I
sure
have-
he works for the public too.
Yeah, well, it's got to be like a joint thing between the two of you. And part of our problem in the last 4 years is that Rivero and Anderson did not get along, so they did not see eye to eye.
Get
and
out. Get out.
Yeah.
That's why you're here, right?
I have one question, and that has nothing to do with Lake County.
Okay.
And then my wife can go into her rest of her questions. Obviously, there's been a lot of publicity about what's been happening around the country, Ferguson, Cleveland, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to get into specific cases because none of us really know the whole circumstances and the evidence that was at hand. But there's been a lot of talk, been a lot of both peaceful and violent protests around the country, especially in Oakland, which went far beyond the scope of reasonableness. Two things. Number one, do you believe that certain law enforcement individuals, not necessarily departments, overreact to certain situations, i.e., controlling peaceful protests, and then, or crime in action, for better choice of words, where they could possibly overreact to the means of apprehending that individual? And then number two, there's been a lot of talk about law enforcement departments.
Can we?
Yeah, go ahead. You
do
want to go
one-
the first
we'll
one?
do one at a time.
Okay.
You get me thinking about two questions, and
Yeah, we don't
want
wanna
to clear.
confuse
Yeah, I
you.
want to make sure.
Come on, multitask here.
As far as the overreaction, the way that officers respond to things is viewed from an officer standpoint is sometimes quite different than what the layperson views it as. I think a lot of that's due to a lack of education. It requires quite a bit of training and education, ongoing training. to become a law enforcement officer anywhere in the country, and most particularly in California. And so sometimes what a lay person on the street will see on a video or witness in person will go, wow, that doesn't look very reasonable to me. But to an officer, that might be the appropriate and reasonable thing to do. Now, does that mean that in every situation, everything is handled absolutely perfectly 100% of the time? No, it's clearly not. We're humans just like everybody else when we make mistakes. And the way to deal with those, I think, is if it's an honest mistake, it's maybe a lapse in judgment, provide some training, provide some disciplinary action if necessary, and we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. If you have a case where an officer is being heavy-handed or doing something that's wrong, and they know that's wrong when they do it, and they decide to do it anyway, then that requires some more severe punishment.
Well, is there any form of training, either locally or in your experience, where they're trained to disarm a alleged criminal action instead of just going
without deadly
shoot,
force?
you're dead?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well,
I mean, is that part of the training? Because it just seems like shoot
and
to
see,
kill is like
no.
the first reaction.
No, you won't find a training program in law enforcement. I've worked all over the country. You won't find a training program that says shoot to kill. You will find training programs that you apply what we call a reasonable amount of force, and the reasonable can depend on the situation. Until if you're using force to stop a threat, until the threat stops, and if somebody voluntarily surrenders and the threat stops.
I mean, you got a guy coming at you with a knife, and you blow his knee out. He's not going to get to you with that knee out.
And again, that's a very common misnomer that people have. I'll blame that a little bit on Hollywood. We can't shoot knees. I don't know if you've fired guns
come on.
and tried to hit.
Come on.
We don't train to do that. We train that our officers go home at the end of the evening. I never want any officer. I never want to lay to rest any officer in my career because of poor training or poor decision makings. And they don't train to shoot a knee on a running person.
Right, they're trained to go for the heart, go for the head.
You go for what's called center mass. And
right.
if it happens to hit the heart, it hits the heart. Your torso section is the largest part of your body.
So it is basically shoot to kill. If you got to draw your gun, you're going to kill that person.
Well, that's what deadly force is.
Right.
Well,
okay. Well,
so that's where it, that's,
but we don't run
it's
around.
hard.
Yeah, we don't run around shooting everybody. If you're going to run at me with a knife, and I'm a cop and I have a gun, you might expect you're going to get shot. If you're shoplifting a bag of M&Ms, we're probably not going to,
well,
probably not going to shoot you.
Let me ask you
that.
this: you're law enforcement prior in different areas. I have my own attitude. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I have my own attitude. Is that if you volunteer to become any type of law enforcement officer, you already know that you're going into a risk job, and shouldn't that be taken into consideration when you're dealing with the public and dealing with certain crime situations, that you know that you've accepted this risk factor and that your life is just as important as the person that may be sorry, I just lost my train of thought. That
I'm not in your brain.
I know. Most people don't want to be. Where you're having a situation where someone could physically attack you, that's that's something
we assume.
That's something that's part of your
it goes with
your
the job.
responsibility. It's part of your job.
Yeah.
So if you in a situation where someone's coming at you with a knife, and you have one choice only, and that's to shoot that person, isn't there an alternative? Because you are taking a risk in accepting that position.
If you're trying to say that because you become a cop, you gotta let somebody kill you because
No, I
that's
didn't
what
say
you're
that.
getting into. No, what I will say is that we train our officers, and we'll train our officers here on a local level the same as we do on every other state, that you respond with a reasonable use of force. I'll turn it around and say, if you decide that you're going to grab a knife and run at an officer,
You're dead on the spot.
you can expect that that cop's got a gun and you're probably going to get shot.
No, I understand.
And you may die.
And I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't expect.
We're almost out of time.
Oh, are we
'cause
already?
We have
It's been an hour.
Jeez.
almost, yeah, and I want to get my points in here. So let's move on to the next level. I hear what you're saying though, and unfortunately, to me, it's a side effect of the job. It's kill or be killed, and it's life or death situations that
very
you
rare that
have. But you have to make that judgment call when that opportunity arises.
Yes.
So it's really up to the officer, and I guess how he's trained and how he reacts. And all we can do is hope that the training here will
it's
be
based on
such
training. It's based on case law. It's based on statutory
right,
law. It's based
that
on
the guy will have a
experiences.
level head and won't react without thinking things through. And that's what we have to hope for. and that's what we'll look forward to. So I want to get back into some of the less comfortable subject matter. Not that this was that comfortable, but first
I'm
of all,
comfortable in shooting and killing people.
yeah, right,
Well-
exactly. If you're familiar with us, you know that I've done a lot of research on the RIMS situation. Your work experience with the sheriff's department goes back to the days when the other Sheriff Mitchell was in power. And at that point, there were some things that happened with RIMS that were not appropriate. And an investigation that was done kind of determined that there had been some things there. You were part of that investigation. You did agree that there were some things that may or may not have been inappropriate, but maybe not were the right things to do.
Or we might be thinking of two different investigations.
Well, judicial services investigations, a company that was hired through Anita Grant to do the investigation on several incidences that Sheriff Rivero had that happened during his term.
Let me correct you on something for you a little bit further. Anita's not the person that hired.
Well,
Judicial
actually,
Services.
according to judicial services, she is. That's what they told me, and they showed me documents to show
I'll
that.
show you some documents that
Okay.
disprove that.
Well, I'd love to see
I'd
that.
love to show them.
I can only go with what they said, and I have to say that they seem to be a credible source. So, we did go directly to them about this. We did discuss all these different issues that they investigated, and we felt that the RIMS thing, it carried over after the investigation into Lakeport Police Department was accused also of having access into the RIMS. There's been some accusations that when you had your investigative company that possibly there were some accesses there as well. So I want to know
Have you ever been the subject of false accusations?
Yes.
Okay.
this is why I'm asking the questions, because I know, being a victim of such things myself, that the best way is to go to the source. So I want to know that I would like to have your ideas on how the RIMS situation is going to be handled in your administration. Are you going to continue what the Mitchell administration had, which seemed to have been an unfettered access by all law enforcement into those records? Or are you going to have keep the tight lid on it that it seems to have now and the control that it seems to have?
There's a place somewhere between those two extremes that is the right place to be. The RIM system is a records management system. It's a law enforcement database that's supposed to be used for official law enforcement purposes. It should be used by every agency in this county because Clear Lake's criminals are the sheriff's criminals and our Lakeport's criminals. And so if we can share that information to perform more professional law enforcement, more effective law enforcement functions, that's
Absolutely.
fine. There's the accusations are out there. If there were crimes that were committed, somebody should have been prosecuted. Lakeport City Council, during one of their recent meetings, announced the results of an audit that they got from the Department of Justice that said back during the time that these accusations were made, they were found to be 100% compliant with the audit results and appropriate access to the information. A lot of that was thrown up as it was rhetoric. It was any accusations that were made against me. I know they were, we'll call them shadow accusations because nothing official ever came back, because I don't think anybody wanted to throw their official reputation on the line of making a false accusation against me, because I didn't do that. I didn't access those things as a private investigator. I didn't have access to them. I just didn't. That's the end of that
Do you
story.
acknowledge that in the past maybe those things were inappropriately accessed by other people?
I wrote a search warrant for somebody that inappropriately accessed
you.
and released
Okay.
information. So yes.
Yes. Okay, so
and-
what we
and
want to
I-
make sure
and what I
is,
will
is we're
say-
not going back to those days of open doors.
What I will say is, if we find an individual who is violating a policy or a law, we address the problem with that individual. We don't throw. If somebody gets arrested for drunk driving, we don't take away
You don't put
everybody's
the
cars.
roadblocks up.
Yeah, we don't take
Yeah.
away everybody's cars. You address that individual.
And I think
and you
my
hold that
big
person
problem
accountable.
was the term unfettered access. I have
Yeah.
no problem if a law enforcement person wants to know something about someone who's a criminal, but don't look up your girlfriend and what your girlfriend's did,
You're
what her
correct.
past was.
You are absolutely correct. Yeah.
That's not what I want to see.
And I will tell you that probably every day in this country or in this state, cops get in trouble for that types of things.
I bet.
They don't come
It's
to work.
probably easy to
Oh,
fall into that trap.
It's easy to fall into that trap, but it's equally as easy to catch somebody when they do.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody can go in there. I mean, there's such an audit trail that's in that. I don't know if you read my search warrant, but you can't really do anything in that system without leaving an electronic trail, and it's
Exactly.
pretty easy to follow. So My role is to educate people. Hey, this is what you're allowed to use it for. This is not what you're allowed to use it for. And if you do something, as I said earlier, and it's an honest mistake and requires some training, we'll train you so you don't do it again. But if you're in there looking for information because you want to dig up some dirt on somebody, and you know you're not supposed to, be expected to be held accountable for that.
Excellent. Okay. So, relating back to those type of days, which we hope are going to be gone, a lot of the rumors that fly around are saying that you're going to basically be a clone of Mr. Mitchell and be driven by that group that ran things back in those days. So what can you do to assure people that they're not going to be going backwards, that we will be going forwards? And are you your own man?
I'm not a clone of anybody. A lot of this is things that I said during the campaign. I'm not anybody. I worked as a lieutenant for Sheriff Rivero for longer than I worked as lieutenant for Sheriff Mitchell.
Okay.
I certainly won't be him when I take office. I learned some things from him on what to do and what not to do. I learned some things from Sheriff Mitchell on what to do and what not to do. I've worked for several police chiefs, special agents with the Department of Justice, Army captains, colonels, lieutenant colonels, majors. And that's what leadership and experience is. I'm a conglomeration of things that I've learned over the course of my career on how to do things properly. I'm sure I'll make my mistakes, and I'll do some things that don't please everybody. I'll learn from them, but I've seen a lot of what the mistakes are that have been made by some of the leaders, and again, some of the good things that I've seen from leaders that I've worked for, supervisors I've worked for, and that's who Lake County elected. That's who Lake County's going to get.
Will transparency be your byword?
Absolutely. We at the beginning of the show, that's the first thing we talked about.
Right.
Being transparent in educating. I think that's a very important function of that. Transparency. I think a lot of people hear that and think, "Well, I'm going to get to see everything that the sheriff's department does," and it can't be that way. We can't be effective. We can't do our job appropriately with it. There's going to be times when questions come out like, "Well, why did you do that?" or "What's going on with this investigation?" And sometimes we have to keep those things under wraps for a period of time. Maybe someday it'll come out later on. Legally, there's things that we simply can't release. We can't tell you who's the victim of a lot of sex crimes,
Right.
domestic violence.
Of course.
Crimes. So, understanding those things, but,
Knowing our parameters that we're working within, then as long as you're willing to have your person answer our questions and return our calls,
Yeah.
I'll be okay with that.
And the answer may be, here's the information looking for. The answer may be, we can't tell you right now. It's an ongoing investigation.
Right.
It involves confidential matters. We're prohibited from telling you that
Right.
type of information.
So are our other guests here yet?
Not yet, but we do need to take a quick
Right.
break.
Can you
Unless
stay over a few extra minutes?
Sure. Yeah.
Until the other guest arrives?
Absolutely.
do you want? Okay, because I was going to
Go ahead. Music?
take a few minutes. Let's do a quick break, and
Okay.
then we'll come back and see where we're at.
Sure.
Okay.
I could sing.
No.
Thank you.
I keep on threatening. Everyone turns this
Okay,
off.
let's see if we can get to play. There we go. Let's see. 1, 2. This one's called I Asked for Water, and She Gave Me Gasoline. By Howlin' Wolf. We'll be back. I see what I'm doing wrong here.
She brought me gasoline. That's the turbulence woman that I ever see. Oh, the church bell toning. Oh, the hearse come driving slow. Oh, the church bell toning. Oh, the hearse come driving slow. coming back home? Oh, tell me, baby. Oh, when are you coming back home? You know I love you, baby, but you've been gone too long.
After them take a four parents come up and ship and beat them with all the whip. Babylon have a trapping on the western hemisphere, Rasta. Repatriation is a must. Greetings in the name of His Imperial Majesty. I know them a go call this anti-social commentary. Tell them to count me out, I'm not a part of this society. Exit from them system, mine, I don't want no re-entry. History Babylon breed international slavery. Fool the people, rule the people, that a feed them strategy. Now I see them coming with them one world order. And them must say it is to make life easier. But this is the same thing that Revelation tell. Without the mark of the beast, you cannot buy nor sell. Babylon of the people, them hip to the trick under this bill of Leviathan 666, yeah. And now we skin them one come put my country, but we not accept the mark of the beast, and we can't forget the black king of the east. Now we not accept the mark of the beast, and we can't forget the black king of the east. And you and I no come yourself to make no sacrifice. Long time we have find out what the real antichrist. The mission is to open up the people them eyes and not make the beast attack them by no surprise. Him carry many faces when him under disguise. Sidestep him, no hip to the tricks and the lies. They go Babylonian state and them continent. Chant na ya bingy make we burn up the serpent. No more living underneath this spell. Cause what is heaven for them for rhyme and it's hell. Babylon of the people them hip to the trick under the spell of Leviathan 666, yeah. And now we skin them one come put my country, but we not accept them mark of the beast, and we can't forget the black king of the east. No, we not accept the mark of the beast, and we can't forget the black king of the east. Ready in a Babylon until die them Rasta. Lordy, 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 dangerous plan, you know. This plan is not for black people. Repatriation is a must. Greetings in the name of His Imperial Majesty. I know them a go call this anti-social commentary. Tell them to count me out, I'm not a part of this society. Exit from them system, mine, I don't want no re-entry. History Babylon breed international slavery. Fool the people, rule the people, that is fit them strategy. Now I see them coming with them one world order. And them must say it is to make life easier. But this is the same thing that Revelation tell. Without the mark of the beast, you cannot buy nor sell. Babylon of the people, them hip to the trick under this bill of Leviathan 666, yeah. And now we skin them one come put my country, but we not accept them.
It's President Brown and microchip. We can all look forward to that one day, getting our own microchips.
Don't go there.
And I'm sure the Sheriff's Department will be responsible for distributing them.
Yeah, we'll have to pass a measure.
Well, Brian, thank you. We do have to move on. Our other guest is here. But we'd like to know if you would like to be a regular part of coming in and sitting and chatting with us.
What I've told other people have asked me, give me some time to get settled in.
Sure.
I don't know that I will commit to regular appearances, but on an as-needed basis or as issues come up, occasional appearances here and there, I'm more than happy to do that. What I don't want to do is commit
Switch the camera.
to every. I don't want to commit to being here every week. There's lots of obligations, but certainly call me and.
every week. I mean,
Yeah.
we
No.
But it's certainly, I'd love to be invited back on.
Yeah, we've had commitments from other elected officials, from Clear Lake once a month, other people once a quarter. So what we're trying to do is have our newly elected officials be able to properly communicate of what's going on within their expertise or their field, so the public knows what's going on.
If I came on too often, I'd probably get boring.
Well,
I don't know. Not with your theater work and everything. You
by the
always
way,
have something to
one
talk
last
about.
comment
Yes.
is that in certain media, not to name the blog specifically.
Blog.
That anonymous
we
piece
have been, I think we've been chastised, and now we're
Yeah.
the bad boys because we actually
Yeah.
are talking to you.
Welcome to the
because
club.
we mentioned. Well, we've always been attacked by our haters, but
fine.
now they won't even make our posts. I tried to do a promo about the show, saying you and that Dave would be guests, and they wouldn't put it up there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well,
So-
you know, but
I don't
No,
pay
it's
them
not
anyway.
fine.
Yeah, well,
because it's like we were their golden child, and now all of a sudden we are being rejected because we talk to you and we want to treat you like a human being and not like an animal.
figure.
Yeah,
I don't know. I treat my
exactly.
animals better than most human beings. So.
Anyway,
Yeah, I don't put a whole lot of credence in that. I mean, there's going
You
to be
can't,
there. You
no.
know,
It's
if,
so
if
crazy
you know,
over
if somebody
there.
wants to put their name behind something or come talk to them, I'm more than
Exactly.
happy to.
Exactly.
Man to man, woman to
Yeah,
man,
that's-
whatever.
Yeah.
So.
okay,
All
so
right.
thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate
Thank you
your
for
time.
having me.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Yes.
And have a safe New Year's.
you. Happy New Year.
You going to-
let
you
me-
going
let me
to
give a- Let me
TJ's?
give
Oh,
a
no, you're going
public,
to the fire.
let
Let's
me
go
give a
ahead.
public
Yes.
safety announcement. I saw it across the street at Tower Mart. AAA has free taxi rides home. I think they'll tow your car. It's called
Yes, they
Tutsi
will.
Taxi.
5 miles. yeah, for
AAA
free.
Help is the phone number. 1-800 AAA Help. I think.
Cool.
Don't hope that's not somebody's wrong phone number, but you
Well,
know,
make
want to
sure
wish
they
all your
program that in your phone when you go out.
wish all your listeners out there a safe New Year. Make sure you have a designated driver. If you're a designated driver, be a designated driver. Don't have one or
Right.
two and think you'll be okay.
Are there any DUI stops around the counties?
Well, I imagine they'll probably have extra enforcement effort out
Right.
as every New Year's they do. So,
So highway patrol mainly, though,
expect
right?
expect law enforcement to be out in force.
Good.
And here's the number. Look, 800-222-4357, which translates to 800 AAA Help.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
That is the number. Good job. And you know, if call a friend. Don't. It's not worth
Absolutely.
it. It's the most preventable crime there is. Just call a friend. Plan ahead.
Especially
Be
with the
safe.
cold
Don't
weather.
drink
Safe.
and
Yeah,
drive.
our roads are dangerous enough in the winter as it is, without adding that in there.
Right.
So I really wish
Cool.
that all the listeners out there have a good, happy, joyous, safe, festive New
Yeah,
Year.
all
Thank
one
you,
or two.
and hopefully come out to the Mystery Theater at the Youth Center for the
That's
Youth
right.
Center fundraiser. Going to be at the Highland Senior Center.
Correct.
Starts at 6
6
p.m.
6
tonight.
p.m. 6 p.m.
And then they'll be there all the way through midnight.
No.
So there's no midnight party
That's
at
way
the.
past my bedtime. What they're doing is they're celebrating New York New Year's. So at 9 o'clock, I think they're going to show the ball drop, and then everybody go if
Okay.
you have somewhere
Then
else.
everybody goes do their own thing, so
Yeah,
you
do
can
their own
actually
thing.
do two things
Yes.
at one night.
Yeah. Right.
How cool is that?
I'm going to do that and go sleep.
And did you get to see the Mr. Lake County video yet?
I have not seen it yet.
Okay, well, they got it.
It's
I
on
don't
DVD.
like. I don't like watching myself on video. You have the screen up there behind you. I just avoid
yeah,
looking
no,
at it. I just
no,
don't
no.
like. Yeah.
You'll love it. I think it came out great, and you
Good.
did a great job.
Like I say, it was a lot of
Okay.
fun. Looking forward to next.
All right.
So thank you, and we'll be talking to you hopefully real soon.
Okay.
Thank
All
you so
right.
much. Appreciate your
Thank you
time.
again.